Welcome to the InStory show. I'm Devorah Spilman, your host, and our fall edition is focused on Dare to be Seen, how to come out of hiding and share your gifts, your talents, and your story with the world. And today I am thrilled to welcome Dr. Margaret Paul, who is a PhD psychologist and co-founder of the Inner Bonding Process. So we're going to kind of dive in with Margaret into how to talk to God. When I looked you up, Margaret, I was so excited to see that you were a very delighted person like me to talk about God. And how is your ability to connect to the divine and to God within you, how does that give you that true, authentic confidence to share who you really are with the world? So that's kind of where I think we're going to go. But as always, I would love for you to start with a little bit of your story, because my hunch is you probably weren't always as connected as you are now.
Right. Yeah. So I grew up with kind of clueless parents. They were atheists. And I was a spiritual kind of kid. I didn't really know what that was, but growing up with atheist parents, I didn't have any kind of background at all in connecting with God. In fact, God was a bad word in my house. My father would say, anybody who believes in God is just using that as a crutch. So that was the background, and there was a lot of dysfunction in the family. And I went into therapy quite early to try and deal with my unhappiness. And then I became a psychotherapist, and I practiced traditional psychotherapy for 17 years. And I realized that it doesn't heal. Traditional psychotherapy doesn't work very well. And I realized that without a spiritual connection, no true healing occurs. But I didn't know exactly how to have that. I've been trying to achieve that for a long time, and I just didn't know how to do that. And that's when I met the co-creator of Inner Bonding, Dr. Erica Chopich. She had half of Inner Bonding, I had half of it, and God came in and put it all together for us. And it's been evolving for a very long time now. But even then, as the process came together, we realized that part of the process was having this spiritual connection. And how do you do that? You know, what does it mean to do that? Now, the other piece in this for me is that I had been a very sickly child. And in my early 20s, I was just done being sick. And so I started to read everything on health. And fortunately, I read a couple books, one called The Poisons in Your Foods and one called Silent Spring by Rachel Carson. And I realized our food was very contaminated. That was 58 years ago. And and I just turned 80. So I've been eating only good organic food for the last 58 years. And I got most of my health back. I started to shop at the one little health food store in Los Angeles where I lived at the time, and just to eat organic foods, and I got a lot healthier. But I didn't get healthy all the way. And it took me a while, and it didn't lead to spiritual connection. And so then as I started practicing Inner Bonding, which was 35 years ago, and that's a process for really learning to connect with yourself, I realized that connecting with your spiritual guidance is about your frequency. So let me just address that. There's two aspects to frequency, and I really go into this in my book that was published last year, which is A Diet for Divine Connection, Beyond Junk Foods and Junk Thoughts to At-Will Spiritual Connection. So what I realized, what finally led me to at-will spiritual connection were these two things. One is that I realized that the frequency of our body has to be high. If we're eating junk food, if we're eating out and eating fast food, if we're eating processed food, if we're eating sugar, contaminated food, food with pesticides and GMOs and all that, that puts a huge burden on the body. And there's no way to raise the frequency of your physical body high enough when you're putting all that junk into your body. The second thing is that your energy has to be high enough. And this is where inner bonding comes in. So when I started practice inner bonding, we realized that at any given moment, there's only two intentions. One is the intention to avoid pain with some form of controlling behavior. And the other is the intention to learn about what's loving to yourself so that you can share love with others. Well, when I got that understanding about intention to love yourself, and I was already eating well, suddenly I had that connection. It was amazing. Suddenly I could ask God for questions. I could ask God questions and I would get answers. And I started to have this two-way communication, and I could have it at will. And so that's when I realized that it takes these two things. It takes really treating your body with love by putting very clean, nutrient-dense food in, and being open to learning about loving yourself and learning to take loving care of yourself.
Okay, so this is super cool. And so but I have a question. Like when you said that it just doing the psychology and just doing the physical didn't really give you aspect to that spirituality. And also I would have two questions. How did you redeem the word God for yourself after it was a bad word in your family? And what did you do to begin to trust that conversation?
Yeah, so I mean, I started reading a lot of spiritual books and realizing, okay, we live in a universe of love, and I got away from the idea of God as a being, and for me, God became love. God became wisdom, peace, truth, joy, and that was great because I could have that experience of God being that for me. When I started to have this conversation, I did not trust it at the beginning. It took a lot of testing. And so I would ask a question and I would get an answer. And I would very deliberately sometimes do what I was being told to do and see what happened. And sometimes I would not do it and see what happened. And so this took a while of testing it out because it felt like I was making up these answers. You know, it felt like, I mean, it didn't feel like what I thought God was going to feel like or sound like. And so I had to test it out. But after testing it out, I realized that I was getting real answers that my mind couldn't know about, that there was no way that I knew these answers. And there was no way that I knew what loving action to take for myself out of my own mind. And so over time, I started to have absolute 100% trust in that, in God, in higher guidance, whatever that is. I mean, for some people, God doesn't work because they might have been spiritually abused, where God was punishing and judgmental. So I say to people, you know, whatever works, you know, think of God as nature or love or joy or your own inner wisdom or your own higher self or a guardian angel or whatever it is. You know, we're going to tap into that, the same information, the same love and the same wisdom, whatever we want to call it.
I so agree with you. In fact, in my process, I coined a term called spiritual imagination. And I loved I read something you wrote about that what you get through imagination turns out to be one of the ways of getting this very powerful information.
That's right.
So I would love to hear just a little bit more of that experience of learning to trust. I know you said you tested it, but give us a few more tips on how to do that. And then I know you said you have like a little process you can take us through, because what I see is a lot of people run into their old hurts, their old fears, their old doubts. Part of the theme is come out of hiding and dare to be seen. And we bump up against this, like, who the heck am I? Or whatever, all that stuff, right? So I feel, maybe you want to just even talk a little bit more about inner bonding. And the other thing I was curious about is what piece did your co-creator have and what piece did you have? Like, do you know what I mean? To put them together, I would love to hear a little on that too.
Yeah, I had primarily the piece about understanding intention, and she had understood out of her difficult background, that she had an inner child, which was her feeling self, that she needed to take care of because there was nobody there to take care of it. And she had the ability to connect with her spiritual guidance from the time she was little. So she really helped me understand what that was about. And so I came together with my whole background of understanding intention and what it means to really take loving care of ourselves. And she came with that. And then God kind of put it together for us into a powerful 6-step process. But let me tell you a little story about learning to trust God. So I was at one of my 5-day intensives in the summer, and it was hot. And we were on a break, and they were serving lemonade on the break. And as I went to pour this glass of lemonade, I heard a voice. I don't often hear it as a voice. I'll get it as words in my mind, or I'll get it as a picture. But this time I heard a voice that said, "Don't drink it, it's contaminated." And I turned around to see if somebody was telling me this, and there wasn't somebody telling me this. So I thought, I think I'm making this up. And I drank it, and so did 4 other people, and we all got strep throat.
Wow.
So that was a big learning for me, that I was not making it up. Now, things like that happened over and over again, where I finally said, okay, I'm done testing. I got it. It's really here. Now, one of the things that happened from having this connection is that I had been a person, I was a caretaker. I was completely out of touch with my own feelings and taking care of everybody else's feelings. And I made other people responsible for whether or not I was okay. If they liked me, I was okay. And if they didn't, I wasn't, which so many people do. Mm-hmm. And so, of course, I was in hiding too, because I didn't know who I was. As I developed this spiritual connection, I started to ask God, who am I? You know, I know you are unconditional love, which means you love me. What do you love about me? What do you see in me? Who am I? And over time of doing this, I started to be able to know who I am on the intrinsic level, not defining my worth by looks, not defining my worth by accomplishments or performance, but defining my worth by my heart and soul, which we're born with, and by my individual gifts, which we're all born with, but which we go into hiding about because we're not seen. I was not seen. My mother was narcissistic. She did not see me. My father saw me somewhat until I was 12, and then he started to try and sexually abuse me, stopped seeing me at all. So, you know, I developed, like so many people, I'm not good enough, something wrong with me, and developed that ego wounded part that just tries to do everything right and get approval. So it was through this connection that I started to see who I am and to love and value that part of me that is God, because we each have that within ourselves. We are each, our soul is a spark of the divine. It's an individual expression of the divine. And we've each been given incredible gifts. Most people have no idea how amazing they are on the inner level. I didn't, I had no idea. But it was through this communication with God directly that I started to get who I am and come out of hiding and move into my creativity, my passion, my aliveness, my joy. It's just so amazing when you start to know who you really are.
Music to my ears. I'm thinking, yeah. And it's just so profound, and it's a deep work. And I talk a lot about always getting back up again, and getting back up and up and up, and giving each other access. And I think that's a big part of what we do for each other, because we didn't know how to get access. to that higher realm that allows us to feel our gifts, to feel the real essence of who we are. I say it's like being a diamond with gunk on it. You know, you kind of have to clean off the gunk. And so that is so much of my passion, is exactly what you're talking about. It makes me so happy. So,
yeah, and so often, Devorah, when we grow up not being seen and we develop this ego wounded part of ourselves in order to try and have control over getting love and avoiding pain, which we had to do, it was our survival. We think that's who we are. And we don't know that we created that survival mechanism to survive, and we lost touch with our true self. And that's so sad.
But here's the good news: you get to have it back.
Yes, you get to have it back.
You get to have it back. It's not too late. Look, you're really seriously, you're 80 years old.
Yeah, I'm
You're
80 years old.
you are a living, breathing inspiration, because nobody ever thinks you're 80 years old, right?
No, they don't. They don't. They think I'm in my 50s or 60s.
Right. So this is, I think, a great inspiration for everybody listening, is that when you really fill your body up and it become in alignment, like out of that resistant place, things start to feel better. We start to look better and feel better.
Well, and that is what creates health. When we feed ourselves real, true, nutrient-dense food, and the rule of thumb is if our grandmothers didn't eat it, great-grandmothers didn't eat it, don't eat it now. If they couldn't pronounce it, don't eat it now. So feeding ourselves nutrient-dense foods and then learning to love ourselves is so vitally important on the emotional, spiritual level. When you do that, see, that's what finally got me into great health, because I had been eating well all that time. But once I learned to see myself and value myself and truly take loving care of myself on the emotional level, that's when I got great health. That's when I started to have this high energy and creativity, and that's kept up all these years now.
Amazing. So inspiring. So you said you'd lead us through a little something to sort of get people started on that connection play. Want to do that now?
Yeah, we can do that now. Okay.
Okay.
I'd like everybody to take a couple of deep breaths and put your mind on your breath. And let your mind take you inside your body and scan your body for any physical sensations. Because emotions generally show up on the physical level, like if there's any tightness or tension or fluttering or emptiness or feeling of aloneness inside. So just tune into those physical sensations and get present with them and make a decision you want responsibility for them. And that's step one of inner bonding. Now breathe into your heart and make a decision that you want to learn about any way you're treating yourself that's not loving and what would be loving to you. And invite the love and wisdom of God into your heart just by saying to yourself, I invite your love and compassion and wisdom into my heart. And that's what creates what we call the loving adult. We have to be a loving adult to learn. We're a loving adult when we're open to learning and connected with God. And now go inside and just simply ask any feeling you have in there. Is there any way I'm treating you right now that doesn't feel loving to you? And just go in. And obviously this is a very brief visualization, but just go in and see if that feeling part of you has anything to say to you. It might say, you don't listen to me, you're not feeding me well, you're not standing up for me, you're giving me away to others to define. It could be all kinds of things. And you can continue this after the visualization. And now imagine your own higher self, your older, wiser self. Imagine you 100 years from now That older, wiser self has a direct connection to the universe, to God, to all the information there is. Just imagine that you're in a beautiful place in nature with your older, wiser self, your higher self. And imagine that your little young child is with you in this beautiful place in nature. And just see if you can see something wonderful about who you are in your soul through the eyes of your older, wiser self. What's just one thing that's just so wonderful about you as a little child? And ask your older, wiser self, what's one thing that you can do that will help this little child in you to start to feel loved by you? What's just one thing that you can start with? And imagine doing that one thing. And tune in to how that would feel to you. Okay, so those are actually very brief visualization of the 6 steps of inner bonding, which is to get present in your body, move into an intention to learn, dialogue with your feelings, dialogue with God about truth and love, and take loving action, and then see how you feel.
What a great taste. You know, it can feel like the expansive potential of all of those steps and where it can go. And I feel, you know, it's lifted up my sense of shininess, you know. And one thing that really struck me in doing that is the sense, and I think it's because I share some of what you said of like not quite being seen, but I always had to try hard. And lately I have been really paying attention to that sense that when you're really connected to that inner light, there isn't a trying hard about it.
Right. There's a flow.
And there's like you naturally emanate something
Right.
that is loving and bright and shiny. And so I just re-got that same message. And often, you know, when we do things that are in this large sphere for everyone, it's kind of that message for everyone that you're bringing, that I feel, which is that you have this shiny part of you.
Oh yeah, we all have this incredibly shiny, wonderful part, and then the more people tune into that, the more joy there is, because then you can express who you are in the world. You can offer your gifts to the world. You don't have to be afraid that there's something wrong with you, because you know what a bright and shining light you are.
Right, right. And so I'm always talking about how there are all of these tools. And that's a big part of my mission with this series, is that all of these amazing women are sharing such a range of super cool tools for shining yourself up, you know, for like clearing away that gunk. And I'm always having people use image and metaphor and story, because that's somehow how you put some of the cool garments on your light, you know, to share it in the world. So we have just a little more time, so I would love to hear just a couple of more stories of how this works, how it's helped you, how it's helped others, you know, that you would like to share, kind of, in, because you've had such an amazing journey with this. And you know, we want to really encourage the women, mostly women watching, that it's not really ever too late.
No, it's never too late.
Yeah.
Never too late. You know, one of the things that happens with a lot of the people that I work with is that they're kind of numbed out. Not only because they're eating junky food, but because they basically put this beautiful inner child, their feeling self, in a cage. Because when they grew up, they were told, you know, quiet down, don't be so intense, what's the matter with you? You know, you have to be this way, you have to be perfect, people, you know, have to like you. And so they've got their feeling self in a cage. And then when they start to feel something intensely like anxiety or depression because they've been putting themselves in a cage, then they want to numb that out. They want to get rid of that, even though all of our feelings have vital information. Anxiety, depression may be telling you that you're ignoring yourself, that you've put your feelings in a cage, and that feeling part, that inner child, wants out. And so instead of numbing out your painful feelings, it's so important to open to them and find out what they're trying to tell you. All of our feelings have important information for us. And so I have so many clients where they come in and they're numbed out. They live in this flat space and they think that that's okay, except they don't know why they feel anxious and depressed. And then as they start to go inside and get present with their feelings, they start to get alive. They start to feel alive, and they tap into their creativity, and they tap into their ability to love others. They tap into their gratitude. They tap into wanting to share their love with others rather than always trying to get love, which, is an endless thing. So it just opens people to who they really are. I just so encourage people to learn and practice this process, because anybody can learn it, and it will take that essence out of the cage.
So true, and it's so exciting now because I think people can kind of put down that fear of, if I feel the feelings, I'm going to be stuck in them forever. Because what we're seeing now is you can feel it and move through it so quickly.
Well, and learn from it instead of just,
Right.
people say, well, I feel my feelings. What's the point of that? I said, yeah, but you're not learning from them.
Yes.
You're not learning what they're trying to tell you. That's the whole point. Learn from them. Don't
Right.
just wallow in them, or don't just avoid them. Be present with them and learn from them. I call it having your inner baby monitor on, because if you have a baby and you want to be a good parent, you put a baby monitor on so you can hear when the baby starts to cry. Well, this is staying present in your body so that you know the moment you're not in peace, and that tells you there's something to attend to, there's something to learn.
Love that so much. What a great, this is the learning that sometimes these small shifts make such a huge difference.
Right.
Really. So, so tell us a little bit about your free gift for people. And I know there's lots of super cool stuff on your website and your books, but tell them about the particular free gift, and then they can dance along for more.
Yeah, this is an ebook that came through from my guidance. All my writing comes through from my guidance, and it's called Dear God, How Can I Heal So That I May Love? And it will teach people more about the 6 steps of inner bonding.
Okay, and when you get that, then it also has a place to click so that they can kind of go over to your website, and you'll see you've created a lot of ways for people to enter this process with you.
Yes, so there's a free 7-day inner bonding course that people can take. There's many articles. And then there's, of course, paid courses. There's a wonderful course that I teach called Love Yourself, which is a 30-day online course, and with a forum and coaching calls. There's a lot on there, and I work with people individually. I have many trained facilitators who do. I work with couples. And I do intensives and workshops. There's just a lot of ways that people can learn inner bonding.
Amazing. You're such a shiny example of what you teach. I love it so much. And we're going to have a Facebook group with the InStory show. So I would really encourage all of you to come out of hiding and be brave and share your experience. How do you feel about God, about your higher self, about your frequency? What is your experience? How is this related? How are you relating to all this? And we'll come in and check up on you and cheer you on. So just before we wrap up, Margaret, leave us with the last few words of inspiration.
Well, I just want people to know, like you said, it's never too late. I have people who start with me in their 70s who learn this process and completely change their lives. So it is never too late to learn to love yourself. It's never too late to create emotional freedom, physical freedom, as you practice this process.
Well, you are certainly a stunning, beautiful example of that. And I so appreciate your joining us. So everybody, take to heart, go get Margaret's free gift and trust this beautiful light that is who you are. And as I say always in parting is remember to go out in the world, share your story, live your purpose, and be a blessing. Bye, everyone. Thanks so much, Margaret.
You're welcome. Thank you.